Hi, welcome to Life in the Word. My name is Bethany,
I'm Laura.
and we are here. Life in the Word is when we talk about what was shared in the message on Sunday and just kind of break it down. And today's really fun because I'm doing with Laura. This is Laura's first time doing an episode. And for those of you who don't know, Laura's my sister. So I know there's always people at church who are like, wait, what? Laura's your sister? But now you all know that are watching at least. Laura's my sister, and she agreed to doing this with me tomorrow or today. Not this morning. It is already that time. Anyway, and it's especially fun because Sunday was actually the first time she's ever heard me share. We were talking about this.
Yeah, every time that you share, I'm either in nursery
Or she skips church and leaves when she
I'm
finds
not,
out I'm sharing.
I'm not in town, and I'm always kind of upset with you. It's just the way it
It
lands.
just is always the way it lands. So she actually was still on nursery on Sunday, but we didn't have many little ones. So she got to be upstairs in here. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of what I shared on. And it's kind of funny because I was thinking about what like a recap would be. And I was like, well, I could have probably done all my sharing in 2 minutes, but that's how it goes. So anyway, so on Sunday, I just talked about something that the Lord had just brought up to me while I was recording for Life in the Family, which will come out on Thursday, and was talking about in Acts 6 how the disciples had to say no to something because of like what they're called to say yes to, and how sometimes that's really hard, I think, especially as believers, because we're trying to serve one another and be willing vessels, but to understand like that the most important yes we have to give is to what the Lord calls us to. And sometimes that means saying no to other things. And so in Acts 6, the disciples had to say no to serving tables because the call of God on their life was to preach the word and to be praying and seeking the Lord. But at the same time, they sought out like that this is an important thing and prayed about who should be doing this, and that all these things are so important in the kingdom. And so like equally important, and qualified people like took on the role of serving tables, and then just talked about sorry, it is really early in the morning at the moment. So we talked about how like whatever the yes is that God is giving you to say yes to, that you're gonna like, it's sometimes hard to say no to things because those things can be other good things in our life. But like that God equips us, and he's the one who puts the yes and assigns it to us and empowers us to do it. And then also just talked about the importance of sharing those things with other people, and how Paul had to encourage Timothy in the things that he was called to as he was doing them, and to remind him, these are the things you're called to do. And like, I know that there's so many times in my life that I'll have friends and they'll be like, oh, like remind me, like I really want to be doing this, so call me out on it if I'm not. And I think we just don't do that probably enough as believers, of like saying, hey, this is what I see in you. This is who you are. Like, go for it. You got this. And just like encourage each other to run really well. So that's a recap of what we were talking about on Sunday. So was my perspective. So I'm just curious, like what, when you were listening, like what stood out to you, or like did the Lord like share any other thoughts with you on it?
I think that maybe not other thoughts, but I think just like trying to digest that and then apply it.
Yeah.
And my husband asked on the way home, like, well, what do you think you're supposed to be saying yes to? And what do you think is in your heart to say yes to? And I was like, I think it comes down to also your relationship with the Lord and being able to hear from him. Because I think immediately there were things that came to my mind of like things I want to get to say yes to, or things that, just things I would like to get to say yes to. And then being like, but I need to pray about it. I really want to like hear from the Lord on it, because I think that's where it gets complicated, is to be like, you have to be able to hear the Lord's voice, because when you think about what you want, like all of a sudden it gets kind of muddied waters of being like, well, I really want to say yes to this because that's my heart. And I know that the Lord puts like thoughts in our hearts, and I think he gives us like desires in our hearts, but I also think it kind of requires a sifting, because Yeah, I think our hearts, they get complicated too, because it's like, well, what I really want is to be able to say yes to my kids and all their like heart's desires. And if we're only thinking about our heart's desires, like, how do we know that those are really of the Lord, or that my kids' heart's desires are really of the Lord? And it's just, I think that's where I think it gets complicated, is to really know that you heard from the Lord in your yeses and in your no's.
Yeah. So this is going to be a shameless plug for this Thursday. Just happens to be the week that Life in the Family comes out. And I think that I would say the exact same thing. If it's just me, it's easier. But then it's like my kids, and it's like, well, what are they called to? And how do I help them grow in that? And how do we do this as a family? Because we can't say yes to everything. We have 5 kids. And if we're like, we try to like, scatter the yeses, take turns with the yeses. Thanks. Because if we all say yes to them, we'll never be a family. Like, we're going to be going in different directions all the time. So in our family, that's what's worked out, is to be like, okay, whose turn do we think it is? Or who seems like they really need something right now? But it's really hard as families. And so I'm not going to go into it now because I did a whole segment on it. But Thursday Life in the Family is going to be about, how do you do this as busy families, and having multiple people in your family, and figuring out who are we meant to be as a family, and kind of setting some things in place, some foundations and some guideline things that help you as a family at least be able to sift out some of the things like easier, and then be able to concentrate on like what the Lord's calling you to in specific seasons. And I know we talked about that a little bit yesterday, of like there's a yes for today. And I think those are the hardest ones. Like, you know what I want to do today is clean my house. Like, that's the yes that I want in my heart today, because it's the most immediate thing that I'm seeing. Or, you know, like, it's like, oh, the plans I have for today. The plans I have for today is I have 2 little nieces that are from out of town that are coming. And to be like, I've given my yes to that. And it feels like, okay, I want to do that really well. But having like my eyes and ears open to other things can be hard. But then it's like, sometimes it's the longer term yeses that get muddled. And over time, I'm like, man, we're just not getting in the Word with my kids like I'd like to. And we have this like goal, and the daily yeses are taking up so much time.
Right. And they're a little more innocent, you know, as far as your thoughts go. It's like, oh, I said yes to the pool, which means that we didn't, you know, make family dinner. So whatever it is, but I think they seem a little more easy to skip over intentionality with.
For sure. The small decisions can add up, and, you know, there's so many of them that like all of a sudden it takes up a lot of your time, and you didn't even realize it was coming. And so it does take practice on like hearing His voice, and like the stillness to like slow down to make those. Because I think in our pace, it's like, you know, I don't know how many questions other people get asked today. Can I do this? What about this? What about this? Like, I can't even imagine at this moment, like processing them all and like sifting them out. But I do believe like with practice, like I could get better at like not feeling overwhelmed by that and having to do it. And instead kind of having like a general flow of like, okay, during this time, there can be a lot of yeses. But this is what like we're saying yes to. Like, we're not going to mess with this time in our day or something like that. I don't, you know, this is like for sure for me, something we're working on. Like I always say, like if I'm sharing on something, it's because it's what the Lord's doing in my heart and in my life. And it doesn't mean I have it all figured out already, that I'm sharing on it, not necessarily always teaching on it from a place of having mastered it myself. So,
I mean, I think so many of the things are all so intertwined, because like listening to the sermon on Sunday, I was like, yes, like this is 100% the season that I feel like I'm in, is just trying to figure out what our yeses are going to be and what our nos are going to be, not because things are good or bad, but just because you can only say yes to so many things, and those things are going to direct the course of your family, and they're also going to tell your children what you value, and ultimately like teach them what they should value.
Yeah.
And I think it always comes back to like your relationship with the Lord and being able to hear his voice and being able to be in his word enough that those decisions come really naturally. Because if they don't come naturally, you're going to spend a lot of your day paralyzed in like the indecision of wanting to hear his voice, but maybe not being able to.
Yeah.
Or I just think you can be, and you can be so quickly overtaken by the yeses of the world and like what everybody else is doing. And so like, I think about this with homeschooling because I homeschool my kids, and every year I get to look at curriculum and pick out what curriculum I want. And every curriculum looks like amazing.
Yeah.
For different reasons, like whether it's the books that are included or the fact that, this curriculum teaches Latin. Well, my kids don't know Latin. Like, that'd be so cool if they knew Latin or they knew their presidents or whatever it is. And I think you can suddenly have like 100 things in your cart and you can think, well, clearly I'm not going to get to all of this and I can't do any of it well if I have all of it because I'm just going to be like jumping from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the case with this of being like, we have to know what he's calling us to, and that might take time.
Yeah.
And as a family, really conversations and prayer and trying to come to the same conclusions.
Yeah. And I think like communicating it well inside like your family and just sharing things of like, this is why we're saying no. It's not because it's a bad thing. It's not that everybody should say no to it. Like, I just think there are so many good opportunities. And the truth is the Lord could be in them, in any of them. Like he's calling us all to different things. And so like, it really is, about that, taking that time. And I know somebody like said this once too to me, is like the no's are important because like you need to guard that space and say yes to like resting in him and listening in him. And so to be like, if I'm saying yes to all these other things, am I giving space to that? And I gave like a challenge on Sunday to be like within 24 hours, tell somebody a yes that you feel called to, or something that's like been weighing on you that you're like, man, I really want to be doing this. Or as a family, we should be doing this. Just fair thing. I didn't say it within 24 hours. We were sitting around the dinner table last night and I was like, I like haven't shared this. And I'm like, it's actually really good we share this with each other because like these are the people I probably see the most is within my home. And so like it's really good for my kids to know and to be like open with them and be like, this is what mom is feeling. This is what dad's feeling. What are you feeling? And so like I shared it with them and I was like, my thing I really feel like at this moment that I want to be saying yes to more is not just reading the word, but like stopping and like meditating on a verse and listening to the Lord speak to me through it, because I think tend to be like a checklist, go person. And it's like, okay, good. I spent time in the word, or I went for a walk, and just to be like, but just to sit and to listen and to recognize that like giving space to that yes, like will train my heart and my ear to know his voice. And I think about how like Jesus, it says he only did what he saw the Father doing. And like out of like those quiet times with him, like he could walk and know like where to walk because there was somebody who needed to be healed and like walk with the Father and do that. And I was thinking about this, about like all the good yeses and like how hard it is to say yes. I was thinking about how hard must it have been to be Jesus and to have like walked and just healed the one. But like how much trust that requires of the Father, that he's like, he's really going to show us what needs to be done to like fulfill like the best he has for our life and the purpose and the glory he's looking for out of our lives. And how worthy he is of that. Like he was worthy of Jesus passing by people to go to the one that he was called to. He was worthy of like Jesus not just making meals every time that there were people gathered. Like he's worthy of our no's, to just be obedient to him, and he's worthy of our yes to what he's doing. And and it was just kind of like this thought that blew my mind when I think it's hard to say like no to really good things that I want to be saying yes to, that seem like they're such great opportunities, to recognize like Jesus had to do this too. And those were,
And I think in a lot of those stories, not that particular one maybe, but in a lot of the stories, they talk about setting aside time first to like pray and fast before the actual thing comes, and about how like that's about preparing your heart. It's about like making a way in other circumstances. And so, I mean, I think that spiritual component, it can't just be a yes and it can't just be a no. It has to be like with like, I'm trying to think of the word, but like with the prayer and meditation ahead of it to know, because I think of a couple of things that came to my mind when we were listening to your sermon, and it's like, well, that would take faith, that would take like me overcoming fear, that would whatever it is. And it's like, so it requires me to also then like really hand it over to the Lord in prayer and really hand it over to him, to like take care of all the extras.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just like the direction, it's also like the faith journey of it, the trusting that he's going to provide or make a way. And I think about that even with like the decisions we make for our kids, and being like, in the natural, I could be like, well, if we don't do the travel basketball team, like, what does that mean for Rye? He really loves basketball. It's his passion. And if we don't do it, does that mean he won't get to be on this, you know, team in the future or whatever it is? And I think it's like the Lord knows the path that he has for Rye. And if he's calling us to say yes, then like he's going to make a way for that. And if he's calling us to say no, then he's also going to have Rye's best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And I can trust that, like, if he's supposed to be really good at basketball or really have basketball in his life, like the Lord's going to make a way for that, regardless of my like having to say no to something that feels heavy. So I feel like there's so many components to that yes and no, but it all comes back to like your actual relationship with the Lord and the time that you put in with him to be able to like lean and trust and hear. Yeah.
And to like live a life of faith. And I just was thinking about like that verse that it says like, but will I find faith when I, when I return to the earth, and just being like that desire to be a people of faith. And faith can be scary. Like it means not giving in to all the things we fear, right? And how we make a way for ourselves so that the things we fear don't have to happen. Right. But instead, like truly living a life of faith where I know the Father and I know he's fathering my kids well. I know he's fathering me well, and I can really trust him and walk that out. Not just like, I think a part of it's surrender and sacrifice and willing to be like, okay, this isn't easy. I don't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And instead, like having like that component, but also like so full of faith, like he's got this. Like I don't even have to worry about how it turns out.
Which you gave a really good example in the sermon about Peter getting called out on the water.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like, I think that story is always so cool. And everybody's like, oh, I want to get out of the boat and walk on the water. Like, and like, it makes no sense. Like the idea of him calling him out. And at some level, there isn't like purpose beyond faith.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to walk on the water. He didn't need to get anywhere that he couldn't get. And yet it was all about just being like trusting of the Lord and his goodness to come out and like come to him.
Yeah.
But it was a good example because I think it's also like outside of our realm of possibility, except for with like the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Or if you can run really, really fast. So that's what my kids taught me. You gotta run really, really fast.
Otherwise, you stay.
Yeah.
Aww. Awesome. Well, thanks for being willing to join me today. Do you have anything else that you?
I don't think so.
we want to say? Well, thank you guys for listening in and being a part of Life in the Word this morning. And I just want to challenge you in that thing to just like, I guess, sit and listen to his voice and ask him like, what do you have for me, God? Like, what do you have for our family? And just hearing who the Father is, I think like it builds excitement instead of like this constant feeling of like, okay, I can like discipline myself to obey, which is a piece of it, but also like the things he's calling us into. And believe me, he's such a good God. Like he's such a good Father. And like getting so excited for what he has that we get to be a part of as well. Like it's not just the no's, it's like making room for what he has. And those things are great. So I'm just going to pray to close. So Father, I just thank you so much that you look at us, that you've created us, and that you have amazing plans over our life. There's things that you have like created and woven into the fabric of who we are. Like when you made us in our mother's wombs, God, that you're like, this is a destiny and a purpose over your life. And I thank you, God, that you are drawing us to yourself and that you just have such good plans for us to walk in. And I ask that you would help us to have eyes to see and ears to hear what your Spirit is doing, that you would give us grace and empower us to say yes, Father, that you would give us people to encourage us and walk alongside the way with us, that we would be vulnerable enough to say hard things, to say, this is the things I'm feeling called to. Like, I really mean it. Call me out on it. Like, encourage me in it. And that we would be people who encourage and build up one another to run after you, God, and the things that you've put up and laid before us to do today, God. So I just thank you and love you and bless you. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.